I'm sorry, they love the hatred and they hate it's any kind of inclusion. Division is the bottom line. So they may have this stupid ass segment where they're joking, but they're still looking to that final point. It's the end of the show, you guys. Thanks, Jax, for joining me. Thank you guys for being here as well. Up next is the Young Turks, Anna and Cenk. See you guys tomorrow.
Woo! Get some!
All right, we got a fun show, amazing show, disastrous show, all of that wrapped up into one for you guys tonight. Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian with you guys, and there are literally disasters in the show. including the first story.
Quite a few. Well, Pete Buttigieg is having a tough time. For good reason, lots of foibles, so let's talk about that. Pete Buttigieg and his allies are super salty about the fact that he has been criticized pretty aggressively, both by the conservative media and also by actual journalists like David Sirota, who has been following his lack of regulations for the rail industry and his lack of concern for days after the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. Now, Buttigieg, who is the Secretary of the Department of Transportation, will have you believe that he's been concerned from day one, but his actions seem to prove otherwise. And so Politico writes this lengthy piece that's full of all sorts of excuses by allies to Pete Buttigieg. So let's get into the details here. So on Wednesday, Buttigieg's allies were complaining that he's taking an unfair pounding, weird choice of words, but nonetheless, over the disaster, all because of his perceived ambitions as a one-time and future presidential hopeful. No, that's not because that's not the reason why he's being criticized. Go ahead, Cenk.
Yeah, so it's funny for people in Washington, the folks who are actually affected by this in East Palestine, Ohio, are such an afterthought. This has instantly become political football.
1000%.
Who's up, who's down? How is it affecting poor Pete Buttigieg, who's taking a pounding over this? No, the residents are taking a pounding. Pete Buttigieg has done nothing, and hence he is a tiny bit politically hurt by it because of his own inaction. He's not the one that's the victim here. It's amazing the way that they frame it. And they say, and why? Is it because he actually didn't push for any safety regulations? No. It's because of his perceived ambitions to run for president. That's why he's being unfairly attacked from all these different sides, but especially the right wing are making this. But guys, we tell you 1,000 times when the right wing's making stuff up, right? And they do it all the time. And in this case, their angle onto this story is wrong. But Buttigieg actually didn't do anything, and this accident wasn't because he might run for president. It's a thing that actually happened in the real world.
Buttigieg has been transportation secretary for 2 years. He admitted himself during an interview on Yahoo News that the derailment in East Palestine is one of 1,000 train derailments every year. You have been the transportation secretary for 2 years. If you know that these train derailments are as common as they are, who exactly was he expecting to regulate them? Who exactly was he expecting to take ownership and leadership of this position? And the fact of the matter is, Pete Buttigieg thought, great, I got nominated for transportation secretary, I'm confirmed, perfect, it's gonna be smooth sailing from here. And then I'll run for president in the near future and everything will be great. Except it's a real job, believe it or not. It's a real job. And yes, Republicans, the Trump administration further deregulated the rail industry. We've been covering that extensively. But who is in charge right now? And this is what we see with Democrats all over the place. In California, for instance, we have tens of thousands of people suffering from severe mental illness all over our streets, okay? Literally dying on our streets. And California, which is a blue state, completely dominated by Democrats, you know what they say? Oh, it's all Reagan's fault. It's all Reagan's fault. He closed down all the mental asylums, it's all Reagan's fault. Who's been in charge for decades in California? Has it been Reagan?
Yeah.
Has it been Reagan? Do you guys get what I'm saying here? I'm just so sick of Democrats like thinking that any criticism toward them is like just part of an orchestrated right-wing attack, and it has nothing to do with the substance of the critique. I mean, it's insane.
Well, it's actually a tactic that the Democrats use. So they're using it in this case, and in this political article too, which is, they did it, right? Okay, all right, Reagan did defund those hospitals. And in today, White House press secretary is saying, Elaine Chao was Elaine Chao who wouldn't regulate for all that time under Trump. But okay, that's also true, but Buttigieg didn't fix it.
2 years.
But guys, it's not like he ran out of time. He's never tried, not once in 2 years. So he's doing the same exact thing as Elaine Chao, but it's political football. So it's Chao, it's Buttigieg. No, it's both of them. Their parties take corporate money, stuff it into their pockets, and then don't regulate them. So for cost-cutting reasons. So, but the reporters drive me nuts. They just turn it instantly into, is Chow up, is Buttigieg down? Who's up, who's down, right? Focus, who cares what the Republicans and Democrats said? What's the actual problem? It's not that Buttigieg didn't show up in time or he showed up too early or too late. It's that he didn't do his goddamn job and neither did Elaine Chao. And one more thing, it's actually worse than him just sitting there thinking, oh, I'm a cabinet secretary, I'll run for president later. Remember, they were supposed to, they did pass an infrastructure bill. So he thought he was gonna take the credit for the infrastructure bill and raise tons of money from the transportation industry when he runs for president. Now he's like, God damn it, I gotta do the job. As you're gonna see in this, in more devastating quotes here, he really has no interest in the job whatsoever.
It's incredibly frustrating. Okay, so with that said, one other comment from a senior Democrat who demanded to be anonymous for this piece. Pete Buttigieg has taken a lot of bullets for this president on this. No, he has taken a lot of bullets because he has failed to do his job. He has been the head of the transportation department for 2 years. He knows about the derailments. He knows that there are thousands of them every year, and he chose not to regulate them. All right, so here's more.
No, hold on. He's saying a bullet for Biden. Wait, are you implying that it was Biden's fault and Biden didn't want to regulate the trains? And Buttigieg, oh my God, he wanted to get in there and regulate. But you know what? Biden wouldn't let him. So he's taking a bullet for Biden. So now you're throwing Biden under the bus in a wild attempt to, it wasn't me, it wasn't me, it wasn't me, it was everyone but me. More.
All right, so 3 people in Buttigieg's orbit admit being exasperated by the furor, saying that nobody asked him about the derailment in any of the 23 media interviews he conducted during the first 10 days after the accident. Now he's getting criticism because, I mean, the first point that people were making was, it's been like over a week now, how come the transportation secretary hasn't addressed this? And then when he finally had a public appearance, that would have been perfect for him to address it, or at least show some concern for the people in East Palestine, he decided to talk about something that made absolutely no sense. We'll get to that in just a second. But according to Politico, Buttigieg was prepared to speak about the incident if asked, according to a DOT official. But for 10 days, no interviewer asked him. Does he need to be prompted to say something about what happened in East Palestine? Really? He needs to be prompted, Cenk.
Yeah, and of course the reason why he says that is because he's saying, well, look, my job is all about marketing. I'm not here to actually do any governing or to protect you guys. And since the media didn't ask me about something that might be damaging to our brand, the only thing that I care about, of course I didn't answer any of those questions. I didn't care about that crash. I haven't cared about the 999 other crashes. And by the way, neither did Chao and neither did the administration before that. So for his point of view, he's like, I didn't think I should comment on an issue unless the media made it an issue, in which case it could hurt my political ambitions and the president's political ambitions. And that's the only way that it would be relevant to him. He's telling on himself without realizing he's telling on himself.
Exactly. So with that said, then on February 13th, we started to see a large uptick in mentions on the secretary's social media accounts, particularly on Twitter, said a spokesperson speaking on condition of anonymity to describe behind the scenes events. That afternoon, we began to see stories on television and get inquiries about the Department of Transportation and Secretary's role in this derailment. Now, the reason why there was a lot of attention toward his Twitter account 10 days later is because 10 days after the derailment, he attended the National Association of Counties conference. And during that conference, he had some strong thoughts about what should be done in the construction field. Why don't we take a look at that?
I would urge you, especially because often this is more in your hands than mine, to really work with organized labor, to work with your contractors, to work with your community colleges on building a workforce that reflects the community. That's right. We have heard way too many stories from generations past of infrastructure where you got a neighborhood, often a neighborhood of color, that finally sees the project come to them, but everyone in the hard hats on that project looking like, doing the good paying jobs, don't look like they came from anywhere near the neighborhood.
Yeah, except he just completely made that up, right? So just a lot of happy talk, a lot of pandering, which Democrats mainstream corporate Democrats love to do, pandering to issues pertaining to diversity, even when what he's specifically talking about has nothing to do with diversity. Construction jobs are actually pretty freaking diverse. Like if you look at the statistics, 51.9% white, 29% Latino or Hispanic, 10.8% or almost 11% Black or African American. He just made it up. He just made it up because it's not, he's just coasting. He's just coasting. And he is shocked that anyone would be frustrated by the lack of leadership coming from the Department of Transportation under his watch.
So the 10 days comment's really interesting because actually there was at least one organization, news organization covering this very extensively before then. It was The Lever, which is a progressive news outlet run by David Sirota, and we had him on here to talk about it as well. But mainstream media was like discounted it because they thought, oh, Sirota's a progressive, so this must have to do with Pete Buttigieg versus a progressive 5 years from now in a theoretical primary. So even though Sirota's reporting is perfect and exactly right, we're gonna ignore it. Then 10 days after the accident, the right-wing media picked up Sirota's reporting and they're like, ooh, we could use this for our own purposes.
And they did.
And once right-wing media picked it up, then all of a sudden mainstream media was like, oh, okay, left-wing media is totally irrelevant and they have all the facts, so we're gonna ignore them. But right-wing media is talking about it. Well, now this is a national issue, okay? So then Buttigieg, who knows all about it, that's why he gave that quote about, this is about his presidential ambitions and people from all sides are attacking him. That's a veiled reference to progressives, right? Ignores it when a progressive asks him, but when Fox News asks, he jumps to attention, wait, this could affect my political career. Because the mainstream media cares about right-wing media.
Because right-wing media has power, right? Progressive media, we're building power, but we're not at the same extent as right-wing media. We don't have the resources, we don't have billionaire donors that give us tens of millions of dollars to run our operation.
Yeah, and we don't have mainstream media amplifying our issues and our facts. Whereas as soon as right-wing media says something, mainstream media has it reverberate throughout the country. And hence then they use this. The Buttigieg fans in the administration, they say these are bad faith attacks from Republicans. And when they say that, that's catnip for Democratic voters. They go, oh, this must be a Republican attack on poor Pete Buttigieg. Instead of saying, hey, Buttigieg, you're supposed to represent us and do regulations that Democratic voters want, they then turn around and support Buttigieg against Fox News and Republicans, just like the administration wanted. And meanwhile, you forgot that he's supposed to do regulations and he hasn't.
And guys, like please spare me, like anyone who's upset at the reality that 95% of politics happens to be optics. I'm sorry, it's just the reality of the situation. So when they start calling on Pete Buttigieg to visit East Palestine, just do the decent thing and visit East Palestine and don't look for ridiculous excuses for why you couldn't do it. So yesterday, Donald Trump visited East Palestine. We know the truth about Donald Trump. We know that he deregulated the rail industry. As I said earlier, we've been covering that extensively. But do the people of East Palestine know it? I mean, probably not. And so when they see Trump show up and pass out water bottles, when they see Trump at the local McDonald's ordering meals for the local fire department and the police officials there, they think, oh wow, Trump actually wants to do something to help us, and Pete Buttigieg hasn't even been here yet. And then when Pete Buttigieg is confronted by reporters, in this case, yes, from the conservative outlet, The Daily Caller, he doesn't handle it well. So this was from yesterday. Let's take a look at that interaction.
What do you have to say to the folks in Ohio, East Palestine, who are suffering right now?
Well, I'd refer you to about a dozen interviews I've given today, and if you'd like to arrange a conversation, make sure to reach out to our press office, but I'm time to have that conversation with you. Just walk
You don't
down the
have a
street
message
here.
for them?
I do, and I shared it with the press many times today. I'd refer you to those comments.
Would you mind sharing it with us?
No, I'm going to refer you to the comments that I made to the press because right now I'm taking some personal time and I'm walking down the street.
Are you going down there?
What's that?
Are you going down there at all?
Yeah, I am.
When are you going?
I'll share that when I'm ready.
Okay,
I'll talk down the
thank you.
street. Can I get a photo of you?
Yeah.
I don't know why I wanted a photo with her. That was super weird. But nonetheless, I mean, it's just, I feel like there's been one mistake after another. They keep compounding it rather than just taking ownership. stop looking for excuses and stop trying to pass the blame onto someone else. The other thing that really stood out to me in this Politico piece was that they were trying to throw the EPA administrator, Michael Reagan, under the bus, right? Who, look, I don't know anything about the guy. I don't really care for him one way or the other. But nonetheless, again, trying to pass the blame onto someone else, even someone within the administration, right? In order to kind of provide cover for Pete Buttigieg is insane. It's so transparent.
In fact, I'm gonna read you graphic 9 because it's amazing. They say a senior Democrat said, by the way, the senior Democrat could literally be Buttigieg himself. I mean, the headline of the article even mentions Buttigieg world basically fighting back against these things. It's Buttigieg, okay? And if it's not Buttigieg, it's his top staffer with him overlooking the phone call. Anyway, that senior Democrat says, quote, "There's a plume and there's a chemical spill. If anyone should have been there right away, it's Reagan. But he's not a political target. And so what's happened here is they've picked a political target and they're just beating the drum as often as they can despite facts." So that's him, Buttigieg, throwing another cabinet official under the bus.
Yeah.
Saying, oh, I'm taking bullets for Biden, and it should have been Reagan. He should be the one that's blamed. And yesterday we showed you the National Transportation Safety Board. I mean, it's really their job to do the safety, right?
Yeah, that's
and Congress should be doing, and the company should be doing. How everyone but Pete Buttigieg should be doing their job. He's the only one that shouldn't be doing his job. Hey, Pete, instead of blaming everyone for 20 days straight, or actually 10 days straight, ignoring it for 10 days and then blaming everyone else, why don't you actually just push for safety regulations right now?
So finally, let's get to that, because I want to address that. Because even after all of this, even after all the criticism, all the demands for regulation, the rail workers looked at what Pete Buttigieg is doing in response in terms of regulation, and they're like, what is this? Doesn't seem like he's really serious about this. So why don't we actually listen to the rail workers, okay? Since everyone's so concerned about, what's your political identity? And we'll trust your critique whether or not you're on the right side. Now let's put all aside for a second. The rail workers, the individuals who are experts on whether or not what Pete Buttigieg is proposing in terms of regulation is enough, okay? As currently written, this is graphic 10, as currently written, the proposed rule could allow for numerous instances of single crew operations in the coming years, Railroad Workers United tweeted. The alliance also shared a letter it had sent to the US Department of Transportation last September, accusing the Federal Railroad Administration of attempting to placate unions, community groups, and the general public on the one hand with a two-person train crew rule, while on the other hand, signaling a green light to the industry to run trains with a single crew member. So that was one of the deregulations that the rail workers had been concerned about, had been voicing their concerns about for a while, and had been ignored, right? And so they're like, we even contacted the Department of Transportation last September about this, and Pete Buttigieg is addressing it now. But even as it's being addressed by the federal government, they're trying to play both sides, which they're frustrated by.
If he actually wanted to do something and protect American citizens, it's actually not that hard. Right now, what you would do is, about 4 regulations that would make a big difference. The one Anna mentioned is one of them. Modern brakes in the trains is another. Rules on how you carry hazardous chemicals is another. So these are obvious and clear, and almost all of them directly related to this accident. You could just come out and do a press conference. You and Biden could go together and go, I want these regulations passed. Republicans who are complaining, vote for this bill.
That's right. Why don't you do that?
Trump, and he mentioned Trump, Buttigieg today, but all the rest of you and all the Republican senators and Mitch McConnell and all your dear friends, Joe Biden, and by the way, your Democratic colleagues who are also corrupt and don't want to vote for it, I'm putting you on the line right now. Show me if you're gonna vote for these regulations or you're gonna betray the people of East Palestine, Ohio.
That would have been a far better way of responding to the criticism, right? Instead of trying to pass the buck, instead of trying to find cover or excuses, what would Republicans do in that situation, right? They would do that strategy is exactly what they would do, right? They would do the press conferences, they would do the media tours, and they would incessantly discuss the fact that the rail industry was further deregulated by the Trump administration. And they would call for the specific lawmakers, people like Ted Cruz, saying that, oh, can you believe what's happening? I can't believe it. Call them out by name during the press conference and say, we want legislation right now. Go ahead. And once they vote against it, because we know the Republicans will vote against it because they're in the pocket of the rail companies as well, then you do another press conference and you call them out by name. Instead, I mean, it's just embarrassing, guys. Anyone who provides cover for this nonsense, for this clownishness, like, blows my mind. I don't get it.
So last thing, if you're wondering, well, why don't they do that? Really, there's not a single Democratic consultant or anyone in the administration that's got 2 brain cells that they could do that tactic you guys just said. You guys are a bunch of just a random talk show host, and you guys came up with something that makes perfect sense, right? Well, there's a reason why they don't do it. Because if you call out the Republicans on that, they're just gonna turn around and go, hey, Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, you guys have the same exact donors. And by the way, you haven't passed any safety regulations. Not only you haven't passed them, you haven't even proposed them. That's why they don't do it, because they're just as corrupt.
All right, when we come back from the break, I'll show you how the media should probably avoid covering the story in East Palestine. The ladies over at The View, in my opinion, didn't help the situation. That and more coming up.
All right, back on TYT. You guys know Watch List is a new time. It's right before the Young Turks, 5 o'clock Eastern. Make sure you're checking that out. Make sure you're checking out On Boss. That's Nina Turner's new show too. So you guys can use the QR codes. You know, you can go to youtube.com/onbosstyt, youtube.com/watchlisttyt. Subscribe to those shows. It makes a big difference. We appreciate it. All right. Member section, sexual anarchist hogwash writes in, a Charlie Kirk reference. Pete sounds like crybaby Trump. It's very, very unfair. Yeah, because they're both obsessed with themselves. And so they view the prism as not, hey, what happened to the country? Hey, what happened to these innocent people? What happened to me? Why are all these accidents happening during me? Why is everyone blaming me?
I just can't stand the fact that all these powerful people who have the privilege of the positions that they serve in, they don't give a damn about us. They don't give a damn about the people who are terrified to consume the water in their own town because of this train derailment. It just disgusts me. All of it disgusts me. And honestly, like I don't know if you guys have picked up on this, okay? I'm not a tool for any party or any political group. If one political group does something wrong, I'm gonna call them out. I don't belong to them, I'm not a tool for them. So anyone who identifies as a Democrat, who gets upset at us being critical of how Democrats are handling this, sorry, but we're gonna give you guys the facts. I'm not gonna be a cheerleader for a political tribe. I'm not interested in that, ever.
Look, guys, if you don't want journalism and you want cheerleading, that's what God created MSNBC for.
That's exactly right.
So, yeah. God bless, to each his own. Dragonfire Mathematician X says, Pete Buttigieg, the anointed success for the next generation of neoliberals, is so offended that the peasants are complaining that his earth friends are screwing him. They must all be homophobic. He's incredible. They give him the easiest actual job in government and he couldn't even do that. Of course, but it's his fault, the other guy's fault. He's such a, by the way, underneath the smiling, hey, I'm the Boy Scout, Pete Buttigieg. He's a guy who like backstabs fellow Democrats at the drop of a hat, right? I mean, throwing the EPA administrator under the bus like that in that article, that's a Trump move. So you guys are totally right on your analysis. Dragon with the Girl Tattoo said, ask me no questions and I'll tell you no lies. It really is his policy. I mean, he almost said it in the Politico article. Ian said LBJ had many flaws, but he would have been a socialist compared to today's Democrats. Oh, and he actually got things done. He knew how to pass bills, right? These Democrats were like, oh, there was nothing we could do, which is their anthem. Lou B says, when a politician asks for your photo, it's an implied threat. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Lou. That's a great point.
Yeah, that was
He
super
wanted the
creepy.
picture so he could figure out who that person was, right?
It was, I mean, she identified herself and where she was from, like, anyway.
No, you can't have a picture. Go do your job. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT. Cenk, Anna, and Moki Fraggle just became a member. We appreciate it. And Schultzy41, who's a YouTube member with a hilarious point. 1,000 train derailments per year. If only they had a warning. All right, Anna.
Well, I'm gonna show you what the media shouldn't do in response to the train derailment in East Palestine.
That's who you voted for in that district. Donald Trump, who reduces all safety. He did in those days.
Showed up at McDonald's and those voters saw something on the ground that probably resonates in a way that they need.
Yeah, but they need to look past the photo ops, these people, and say, who's doing the job here?
Joy Behar and the ladies of The View decided that shaming the voting behavior of the residents of East Palestine was really the way to go when covering the story. Now, of course, there was a tragic train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, and now there are big concerns about whether or not the water is safe to consume in the town. Now, of course, Donald Trump deregulated the rail industry, and so Joy Behar is trying to draw attention to that and then basically blame the people of East Palestine for voting for him. But I want to show you her comments with more context. So let's take a look at that, and then I want to hear your thoughts, Cenk.
I do think this was an unforced error by President Biden. It was 20 days before we had Secretary Buttigieg go down, 10 days before he put out a statement acknowledging it.
Yeah.
This is Trump country. He won by 40 points. He is a president for all Americans, I believe that, but he needs to show that he is. It was time for him to be.
I don't know why they would ever vote for him, for somebody who, by the way, he placed someone with deep ties to the chemical industry in charge of the EPA's Chemical Safety Office. That's who you voted for in that district. Donald Trump, who reduces all safety. He did in those
showed
days.
up at McDonald's and those voters saw something on the ground that probably resonates in a way that they need.
Yeah, but they need to look past the photo ops, these people, and say, who's doing the job here? Forget about the photo op.
Showing up is a big
Showing up, I think this is Donald Trump's fault.
Well, I mean, that's called
I think
it's his fault, and then he shows up.
So look, I want to note that while Trump absolutely did deregulate the rail industry, the deregulation that he did would not have impacted this train derailment. So even if he didn't reverse what Obama did, with the exception of the different breaks, that absolutely should have gone through. But my point is, look, you can talk about the deregulation. We've been talking about the deregulation on this show. But making the assumption that the people of East Palestine, Ohio, have all the information about deregulation in this current corporate media mess is naive at best, incredibly ignorant at worst, right? Because they don't have perfect information. You think, does the corporate media talk about the government deregulating things? Is that something they cover regularly?
Or on The View. Look, that was an awful conversation. There was only one fact given, and funny enough, it was given by Joy Behar before she made this so-called offensive comment. Was it offensive? Well, it was literally true that they did vote for Trump. Trump did deregulate, but it leaves out giant facts.
Yes.
And so that context is really important. Now, what Joy Behar probably doesn't even know, because she consumes mainstream media, and she probably hasn't read the great reporting that The Lever has done on this, and has been doing from day one on this, which is that the Obama administration had one small rule, the one that Anna mentioned, okay? There was a series of other regulations about modernizing their brakes, how you carry chemical hazards, how many staff you have, how many inspections you have, so you can spot problems like the axle issue that this train had, right? All those things, as usual with all Democrats, Obama did a light push. And golly gee, the Republicans and other Democrats blocked him, and there was nothing he could do. So did Joy Behar criticize Obama for not trying hard on that? Did they criticize other Democrats for joining Republicans and blocking those regulations? Then Trump made it worse. He took away the one regulation that existed and said he wouldn't do any regulation of the industry. So he definitely made it worse. And then Biden came in and didn't even go back to the light nudging that Obama had. He hasn't proposed anything.
Nothing. Okay, so let me also address that. Isn't it fascinating that Trump comes into office and there's no debate? He unilaterally reverses what little regulation took place under the Obama administration. Unilaterally. He didn't make a plea to the Republican-controlled Congress to deregulate. He just did it on his own through the executive branch. But when it comes to the Biden administration and the Department of Transportation under Pete Buttigieg's leadership, I call on Congress because he knows Congress is where legislation goes to die. He knows that. He knows that Congress isn't gonna regulate the rail industry, but he has the power to do it. He just chose not to. And then after all of this controversy, he decides to put out some incredibly weak sauce regulation proposals that rail workers responded to and said, this is not enough. There are loopholes here, particularly loopholes that allow for the rail industry to operate the trains with one-person crews.
Yeah. And by the way, they just had a near strike in this same industry. And who did Biden side with? He sided with the companies and not the workers. He told the workers, I'm not even gonna allow you to negotiate with them. I'm gonna enforce a contract on you because he has that power in the executive branch. So funny enough, when he needed the power to crush the workers in the railroad industry, he found it. When he needs the power to regulate the railroad industry, where'd it go? Where'd it go? Golly gee, I just can't seem to find it. And so guys, this happens all the time on almost every issue. Republicans come in and get stuff done for the rich. They deregulate industries and they pass tax cuts, right? Democrats come in and can't get anything done. And they go, I bungled it away again. Oh golly gee, one of the few things I got passed was a semiconductor bill, which gives all of the money to the semiconductor industry. Infrastructure bill, which gives all of the money to infrastructure companies. Golly gee, how did that happen? And the media can't tell. I mean, they complain about photo ops and stuff. You guys are the photo op. None of you discussed, other than Joy Behar, that one little part, incomplete, talked about the actual problem.
Exactly.
The regulations that aren't there under Republican and Democratic rule. But you guys are busy distracting the voters. Blame Trump, blame Buttigieg, blame Trump, blame Buttigieg. Get into two different sides and have a fight that's over nonsense and photo ops, but don't ever actually talk about the regulations because corporations are not interested in that.
By the way, the one other thing I'll just say, and look, I say this as someone who has probably one of the cringiest videos of myself out there from the 2016 presidential election where I said horrible things about women who voted for Trump, okay? And I say this because I let my feelings, my emotions target voters, when in reality, there's all sorts of institutional issues here, especially when it comes to our media, something we talk about a lot. So like the optics of pointing your finger at ordinary people, which is what Joy Behar did in that video, is not good if you're trying to make a persuasive case to support, broadly speaking, the left, okay? So with that said, go ahead, Cenk.
But Anna, so we take a slightly different stance on this. So Anna says don't blame the voters on the right wing or the left wing. I say blame them both, okay? And so, and I don't, is it mainly their fault? Of course not, it's the leaders that are deceiving them and it's the media that is maybe the most at fault for covering up all those crimes, right? But yeah, the Republican voters vote for Trump, who deregulates and gave a $2 trillion tax cut to the rich. So what are you guys doing? You're voting for con men. On the other hand, hold on. On the other hand, the part you're never, ever, ever going to see in mainstream media is Democratic voters are like, Buttigieg and Biden aren't regulating. But the meanies at Fox News are attacking him. That's it, we protect Buttigieg, we protect Biden, right? Guys, do you know what's going on? If you watch mainstream media, you think you know what's going on? You don't know. The whole enterprise is built to maintain corporate rule. They're not giving you the actual news. You saw it in that segment, but you can see it in every segment. So yes, we all need to wake up together and realize we're not each other's enemies. The guys in power are trying to get us to fight.
That's right.
So they can rob the place.
Okay, so my point though is, Cenk, this whole idea that, Republican voters, they're voting against their best interest because they vote for Republicans. Okay, yeah, but I mean, we've been talking about the deregulation issue when it comes to the rail industry. What's the difference between Democrats and Republicans, really? What's the difference?
No, I know
there is no difference.
No, in fact, not only is there no difference, guys, they're playing good cop, bad cop on you. And so is the media. Mainstream media goes, we're the good cops, and right-wing media is more, brash and attacks people for their identity, etc. So they're the bad cops, right? But at the end of the day, they're on the same team. On here, watch. We'll tell you guys, we tell you all the time, if you're new to this, once we tell you, you can't unsee it. You'll see that on culture war issues, there's not nonstop fake fights, right? And real fights. But when it comes to economic issues, they always circle the wagons. Everybody in media and everybody in politics. Somehow no one can find a way to regulate, everybody can find ways to deregulate. Somehow everybody's talking about Mr. Potato Head and M&M cartoon characters, but they're not talking about regulating the railroad workers. They're all against lifting student debt. They're all against universal health care that every other country has. They're all against higher wages. They say, it's causing inflation. Oh, well, look at that, MSNBC, Fox News, and CNN agree all of a sudden. It's all a game and it's being played against all of us.
So there was another moment on The View that I think is worth discussing. But before we discuss that, I think it's important to understand the context. So Pete Buttigieg, 20 days after the train derailment, finally visits East Palestine, okay? Seemingly begrudgingly. Now, he provided an excuse for why it took him so long to visit. So why don't we take a look at that, and then I'll give you the reaction from Sunny Hostin on The View.
What I tried to do was balance two things: my desire to be involved and engaged and on the ground, which is how I am generally wired to act, and my desire to follow the norm of transportation secretaries, allowing NTSB to really lead the initial stages of the public-facing work. I'll do some thinking about whether I got that balance right.
No, you didn't get that balance right. So that's him again passing the buck to the National Transportation Safety Board. That's the norm. I thought, I can just sit back and have them take care of it, and then maybe I'll visit as long as, there's enough pressure for me to do it. But if there isn't any pressure, then I'm just gonna hope this is gonna go away. Sunny Hostin responds to that, and Cenk, why don't you take a guess? Do you think that she celebrates his excuse, or do you think she accurately criticizes him?
So this was a late breaking story, so I haven't seen the clip and I don't know what's gonna happen, okay? So, but I can predict with great certainty, and if you watch the Young Turks, you could predict it with great certainty. You're gonna know ahead of time that she's gonna, it was an absurd thing to say. By the way, he says, I was just trying to follow the norms.
Right.
What is that? That's like the weakest excuse I've ever heard, right? And he's blaming the National Transportation Safety Board, as Anna explained, but he's also blaming past secretaries, and that's a coordinated talking point, because then the press secretary came out of the White House and said, Elaine Chao never went, right? So they're trying to pass the buck. Now, if you're a journalist, these are easy to spot. But my guess is we ain't gonna find no journalists on television. So Sunny Hostin, being the Democrat on the panel, is going to say the Democrat is great. Let's find out.
Let's watch.
Because I don't even think they know what's in the water, what's in the soil. I think of course the investigation is still going on, and I think that that's an important point that Secretary Buttigieg made. He's not there yet, he's received a lot of criticism for it, but he said, I want them to investigate it first rather than having me walk around doing what for a photo op. And I actually appreciate that, especially because he was the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, where I went to law school, small town, and he didn't do that type of photo op thing there either. He did the work.
So not showing up was the genius thing to do.
It's admirable. It's admirable.
It's really admirable. Hey, what a weird thing that they chose a partisan side and decided. Did she talk about any of the regulations that a normal Democrat used to do back in the day, FDR, LBJ, et cetera? No, of course not. Because this isn't about actually protecting Democratic voters or Democratic citizens or any citizens. It's about protecting the elite on one side, and then the elite on the other side attack them and attack one another. But at the end of the day, no one gives a damn about you.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Anyway, all right, we got to take another break. When we come back, why don't we switch over to some good news, because there is good news for some of the rail workers for Norfolk Southern. We've got that and more. Don't miss it. We'll be right back.
All right, guys, I love how smart you guys are. Okay, I'm going to super chat. Look at all these great points in a row. Robin Brown says, Pete protecting these communities is part of equity. So for him to use the words equity, diversity, and inclusion is revolting, absolute failure. Yeah, if you cared about equity, why don't you just go protect those folks? That would be equity, right? No, I'm just going to talk about equity just as a smokescreen here. Great point, Robin. Eddie Kawa wrote in, people aren't the ones criticizing Pete Buttigieg because he once ran for president. He and his allies are the ones who want to stop the criticism because they know he will run. That is so true. Look, guys, I'm a strategic guy, I'm progressive. I think about plans well ahead of time. I'm not worried about Buttigieg running 5 years from now in a primary against God knows who. That's not the freaking point. The freaking point is do your goddamn job. But they can't see anything outside of politics. So they're like, oh, so you're trying to hurt his political ambitions. No, I'm trying to help the people of East Palestine, which I know is a very foreign concept to anyone who lives in Washington. Peter Wilkes says, Norfolk about to close a deal to buy Cincinnati Rail Hub for $1.6 billion. Ohio governor won't risk deal. That's excellent context. Honestly, I didn't know about that. So that's why Mike DeWine's going around going, everything's great, Norfolk Southern's great. Here's the water, let's drink it, I'll pour it on, take a shower in it, okay? I'll take a horse bath in it, which is appropriate. God, you guys are so much better than any national media reporter. Okay, Becquia writes in, hope is the difference, which makes it so much more painful. Yes, look, don't ever let go of hope. We've got more hope than you could imagine. These guys ain't it, okay? Revolutions happen really gradually and then all of a sudden. So stay with us for all of a sudden, okay? Political revolutions. Candy with a random reference to lighten the mood among YouTube members. I hate the fact that James O'Keefe butchered a perfectly good Prince song. All right, finally, people's on it.
But did he butcher it?
You put that song in my head, Casper.
Did he butcher it?
You played it one too many times. I was driving home and I was like,
oligarchy.
No, what am I humming? I'm like, oh no, I'm humming oligarchy.
Yesterday during the bonus episode for our members, I had John watch it for the first time. He didn't even know it existed. And I think he secretly loved it. I didn't put words in his mouth.
Progressive writes, and Bernie Sanders had the best appeal to right-wing voters when he went and had town halls explaining why he's actually fighting for and how it benefits them. The Democrats must do this everywhere. But guys, that's the problem. None of the rest of the Democrats mean it. They wouldn't do any of that things. But Bernie says $15 minimum wage, he generally means it. Biden says $15 minimum wage, he's lying. So that's why he can't do the same thing that Bernie Sanders is doing. We'll be back. back on TYT, Jen can add it with you guys, but also Besikwa just became a member, and Lauren McCrae gifted 20 Young Turks memberships on YouTube. Lauren, as usual, you're an American hero. Casper.
Rail company Norfolk Southern has finally agreed to provide paid sick leave to some 3,000 of its workers. Now, the company has 19,000 workers, but this is a good start. And I'm sure the negative press attention they've been getting as of late has nothing to do with this decision. I'm sure it's all just a coincidence. But nonetheless, this is a positive update for the workers who were actually about to strike over this particular issue, the lack of paid sick leave, until Congress decided to put their thumb on the scale and prevent them from doing so. Now, here are the details. Around 3,000 of their unionized track maintenance workers will receive up to a week of paid sick leave. They will automatically get 4 days of paid sick leave every new year, so that's good. The deal will also allow employees to utilize up to a maximum of 3 paid personal leave days per year as paid sick leave. Now, Tony Cardwell, who serves as the president of the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees Division, says this: after 45 years of fighting for this issue, the carrier and union have accomplished what is needed for those who contribute the most to railroad profits, the workers on the ballast line. Now, David Dayen also made another point that I think we're all thinking, which is Norfolk Southern must be in the midst of some bad publicity for it to sign an agreement with around 3,000 unionized maintenance of way workers for 7 paid sick days. And I think he's right about that, Yeah.
So there's no question that Norfolk Southern is trying to get good press, and they're trying to distract you from the real problems. And when, again, since I run a company, I know how these things work. You do calculations on different costs and revenue lines, right? In this case, I guarantee you they calculated the cost of those sick days versus how much they'd have to pay if they carried less cars in a train line. Right? It used to be 80 to 90, which was already a lot. Now it's up to 150. That probably is a lot more money for them. Installing modern brakes instead of the brakes from the Civil War era. Containing chemical hazards better. All of them were probably more costly than the sick days. So they run it through the spreadsheet, they get the answer, and they go, we will do a grand gesture and we'll hit 2 birds with 1 stone. People were complaining about the rail workers not having sick days before, and now they're complaining that we don't have enough of them on the trains. We'll do this smallest little change so that people will say that we did it and we could all move on. And by the way, usually the media and both parties will help us in our marketing efforts.
That's right.
And pretend that everything was addressed when we only addressed the smallest part of it.
I mean, the rail industry, which of course includes Norfolk Southern, has been lobbying hard to reduce the number of crew on each train from 2 to 1. They want to cut labor costs. They have severely cut down on their workforce, specifically to save money and provide a larger return to their shareholders. They've been doing corporate stock buybacks. They have the resources to beef up security. They have the resources to treat their workers better. They just chose not to, specifically because their priority is to their investors. That's the way the system works. So when people get frustrated with the corporations for doing what they do, understand that they're doing what they're supposed to do under this system. And if you're a big believer in capitalism, right, then you need to have the watchdogs and you need to have oversight. You need to have a government that keeps corporations in check so we don't have thousands of train derailments each year. But we don't have that. We don't have that when it comes to a Republican administration. We don't have that when it comes to a Democratic administration, okay? And for everything that we hear about how Pete Buttigieg and the Transportation Department can't unilaterally regulate, it's really interesting because the Obama administration did. And then Trump gets elected and he unilaterally reverses that regulation without any involvement from Congress. So why is it that all of a sudden we're hearing about Congress again?
Yeah, so Buttigieg is literally using that excuse of, well, there's thousands of train derailments every day, every year. And so I didn't know I was supposed to respond to this one. That's not the defense you think it is.
Yeah.
And he's like, Elaine Chao also has thousands of derailments every year when she was a transportation secretary under Trump. That's also not the defense you think it is. That means you both didn't do your job. That doesn't absolve you, it makes you both guilty. And so, and then he says, oh, they've been lobbying so much against our safety regulations. Well, first of all, Pete, you personally have offered none. So they didn't have to lobby very hard since you didn't offer any. At least Obama, I thought what he did was super weak sauce, we've discussed it before, but at least he offered a bunch of regulations, right? And then pretended he couldn't get them passed, right? Buttigieg and Biden didn't even offer any.
They didn't even try.
So what are you talking about? Which lobbyists? Doing what? The ones greasing you? And second of all, finish the thought. The lobbyists lobby so hard, and what do they do while they're lobbying? Is it that they roll up their sleeves and shine the floors or something? No, they pass out money. Who do they pass it out to? Oh, right, your colleagues.
That's right.
The criminals that take all those bribes. And that's why you can't pass the regulation, because the Republicans and Democrats in Congress won't let you because they were bribed.
Guys, please, go to opensecrets.org and look at the lobbying that was spent specifically by Norfolk Southern in 2022. And then break it down percentage-wise based on Democrats and Republicans. Who did they give to more? It's about the same. I can't even remember. It's honestly a negligible percentage difference, right? But yeah, $1.8 million they spent on lobbying in 2022 alone. And they give to both sides because they want to bribe both sides so they remain deregulated. This isn't a surprise, this isn't shocking. Everything is working the way that you should expect it to based on where the money's flowing. That's it.
So they give 1.8 million and they cut costs so much that they make billions in profits. Buying American politicians is the best investment you could make. And remember, they're on the same team. They're just playing good cop, bad cop.
1000%.
So Republicans deregulate, Democrats can't find a way to regulate. Everybody gets distracted fighting the partisan fights. Meanwhile, no one actually holds any of the companies accountable. So this is a small win for the workers, and I love that they fought for it, and I celebrate that part of it. But it is a calculated concession that is meant to be the smallest possible concession that the company could give, and they're hoping that corporate politicians and corporate media cover their ass for the rest of it.
Let's switch gears and talk about something completely different. Unfortunately, this is just as common as deregulated corporations in America.
Twice in one day, the same Orlando neighborhood, the scene of murder and mayhem. Authorities say a gunman opened fire at the same location just hours apart, killing at least 3 people and leaving 2 others in critical condition. Authorities arrested 19-year-old Keith Melvin Moses, a teen they say had a troubled past.
Yet another tragic shooting, actually a string of shootings in one day, which left 3 individuals dead. 19-year-old Keith Melvin Moses shot and killed 3 people in Orlando, Florida yesterday, including a 20-year-old woman, a Spectrum journalist, and also a 9-year-old girl. The next video has more details on how the shootings unfolded.
The deadly rampage began near a crime scene where a woman was found shot in her car earlier in the day in the Pine Hills neighborhood. Police say for unknown reasons, the suspect returned to the scene.
Deputies located 2 men who had been shot in or near a vehicle. They are a News 13 reporter and photographer who were on the scene to cover the homicide from this morning.
The gunman then allegedly went into a nearby home and shot a mother and her 9-year-old daughter, killing the child.
Now, the Spectrum 13 journalist who was killed was a 24-year-old by the name of Dylan Lyons. Jesse Walden was with him and he was also shot, but he survived the gunshot wound. Currently, he is hospitalized and in critical condition. The first shooting occurred at 11 a.m. local time. And then hours later at around 4 p.m. local time, the Spectrum journalists were at the scene in order to report about the shooting. As they were in their news van, Moses approached them and shot them as they were in the vehicle. Immediately after that, he walked into a nearby home and opened fire, shooting a woman and her 9-year-old daughter. The 9-year-old girl is dead. and the mother is also hospitalized in critical condition. Police say that the only person they think he knew was the initial victim, the 20-year-old woman who was shot earlier in the day. They say that she's an acquaintance of his, but they don't believe that he was familiar with the others.
Yeah, so this is the inception of shootings. It's a shooting within a shooting, or like those, I don't know how to pronounce them, Matryoshka dolls, the Russian dolls, where there's a doll within the doll. There's a shooting within a shooting, because that's how many shootings we have. And soon there'll be massacres within massacres, because there's so many massacres, so many mass shootings that we just can't keep up with them. In fact, in the last one we told you, there was a Sandy Hook victim too, and then she was also at Michigan State. And then one of our viewers told us about someone who had been in 3 mass shootings already, because there's nonstop shootings. So they're trying to determine why he did it. Okay, I'm gonna say something a little controversial. Who cares? They all have different crazy reasons. There's one unifying theme: guns. They all have guns, they're all nuts, and they all shoot people for different nutso reasons. But it's the guns. Anyone telling you otherwise is 100% lying to you. In this particular case, so he had a reason apparently for what in his crazy sick mind to shoot a 20-year-old. Okay, the news crew shows up. Maybe he knows they're a news crew, doesn't want to get caught. You think, no, they're not acting rational. Turns out the mother and the 9-year-old, he doesn't know them at all. So he's just going around shooting random people. Because in a country of 330 million people, there are plenty of people who have violent mental health issues. If you give them all a gun, they will shoot us. And that's what we've done.
I want to go to the one graphic we have here. So the Orange County Sheriff, John Mina, said that Moses, quote, has a lengthy criminal history to include gun charges, aggravated battery and assault with a deadly weapon, burglary and grand theft charges.
Why isn't he in prison?
I don't know.
That's a giant laundry list, okay? So I don't understand what's happening in this country, and we've covered this 1,000 times. There's a guy that was in prison until recently in Louisiana because he stole garden clippers. And you know what his sentence was? A life sentence.
Insane, yeah.
Insane. And then on the other hand, you have these guys who are like, oh, he butchered 3 people and decapitated that person and then ran over a little old lady, but he's walking around in the streets. I just don't get it. Here's the only unifying theme of that our government doesn't give a damn about us all across the country. They're so busy stealing money from us that they can't be bothered to protect any of us.
Let's take a break. I know we're ending the first hour a few minutes early. I could use the break, so let's do that. When we come back, we've got more news for you, including the light story about extremist killings increasing in the United States. Look forward to that one. Come right back.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like. tyt.com/join and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Jank. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Such a big fan. Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, AKA Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
This is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. Referred to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because
There's always got to be a super last thing.
Oh, that was just sad.
disastrous. This has been behind the scenes.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richard. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? The white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it though.
We've been around for about 20 years and we have about 20 billion views. Am I proud of that? Hell yeah, I am. We put out 20 billion messages in a bottle. Have we helped to move now 2 generations, millennials and Gen Z, to become progressive? Yes, those numbers are real. We moved generations. Were we the only ones? Of course not. But we have been the largest online news show for now decades. Back on TYT, Jen Canano with you guys. More news.
Well, there is a damning report that we want to share with you having to do with killings carried out by extremists in America. Mass killings linked to ideological extremism has spiked in the United States over the last decade, and that's according to a new report that was published by the Anti-Defamation League. Now, white supremacist ideology happens to be playing a bigger role overall when it comes to this spike in extremist killings, which is pretty terrifying, and I have a theory as to why it's happening. But first, let's give you the details. The researchers here found that the number of US mass killings tied to extremism was at least 3 times higher in the past 10 years than the total from any other 10-year period since the 1970s, okay? So there's clearly a spike, and I think we can notice it in the headlines and the stories that are covered on the show. So let's take a look at this graph that kind of helps you visualize it a little better. So from the 1970s through the 2000s, extremist mass killing incidents were consistently pretty low, from 2 to 7 incidents a decade. However, in the 2010s, the number of mass killing incidents actually skyrocketed to 21. In 2021 and 2022, there have already been 5 incidents, as many as there were during the whole decade of 2001 to 2010. So this is not good. I've got more details from the report for you. But Cenk, I have a theory as to why there's been such a spike over the last decade.
Okay, I'm curious what your theory is, because the answer is obvious. There's 120 guns for every 100 people in America, but give me the nuance on your theory.
But just having a gun, having possession of a gun doesn't automatically mean that you're gonna shoot people with it, right?
A certain percentage.
Okay.
But yeah.
So I think that there's something going on. Look, the conditions that Americans are living in get worse every single year. Every year it gets worse, okay? At the same time, on the right, you have this entire media infrastructure that it's a chorus of people who are constantly blaming the heartache, the suffering that Americans are facing or dealing with on the others, or on whatever scapegoat they want to point to, right?
Yeah.
whether it's the immigrants, transgender people, black people, I mean, you name it. That's all you hear in right-wing media. So on one hand, you have people who are kind of primed to be radicalized in that way because of what they're experiencing in their personal lives. And they're being misdirected by the chorus of right-wing media, blaming their troubles on various powerless groups of people. I think that's what's happening.
That's definitely true. Great theory. And guys, here's a trip because since Muslims feel like the others, we never talk about it in this context. But why do you think Muslim terrorists do what they do? It's because they were told by their right-wing media that we're the bad guys. Americans are the bad guys. The problem isn't Muslim leaders, it's the others. Except in this case, America is the others. And I did a story on this and pulled together a lot of different sources and showed that unfortunately, the way that some portion of the Islamic world got radicalized was through media. It was media that the Saudis and the Americans funded to radicalize Muslims, partly to radicalize Afghans to fight back against Russia a long time ago in that war. And so their right-wing media were like, it's America's fault, it's America's fault, it's the West's fault, go bomb them, go bomb them. And it worked. And here in America, we have right-wing media doing the same thing, but instead, they're pointing it internally instead of externally. Now, it's external to them, they're saying white people are the good people, right? It's black people and brown people and gay people, etc. And look at that, there's shootings at gay nightclubs and at Jewish temples and
at synagogues
and a black store and a black church, etc. Because they were told those are your problems. It's inside the country, but they feel like it's outside their wagons because those are the others, and they go attack them. And they've got the tools right there because they all have guns.
Now, between 2010 and 2020, 164 people died in ideological extremist-related mass killings, according to the report. That's much more than in any other decade except the 1990s, when the bombing of a federal building in Oklahoma City killed 168 people.
Also, by the way, by a right-wing extremist.
Right, exactly. And in addition to this increase in the number of incidents, the dominant ideological drivers have changed over time as well. So let's take a look at this interactive map because it's gonna help you kind of see what's going on here. So the red dots are Islamic extremists, blue are left wing, and purple are right wing. Now, during the past 12 years, right-wing extremists have conducted the most mass killings, totaling 16 of the 26 incidents, so 61.5%, and 89 of the 186 deaths, 47.8%. Now, the majority of the attacks by right-wing extremists were committed by white supremacists, typically targeting minorities, killing 71 people in that time period.
And in 2022, every single extremist attack was by the right wing. And so look, guys, in the old days, were there left-wing extremists? Absolutely. So there's been, animal rights activists, there's been environmental activists, there's been, the Black Panthers did a lot of positive things, but they also had some wing that was extremist. And by the way, my family got chased out of Turkey by left-wing extremists. So of course you could have left-wing extremists. But recently in America, that hasn't been the case at all, okay? And the numbers are stark. It's not close. It's all right-wing extremists now. And partly because it goes back to media. Who's egging on people to do what? Remember the Rwandan genocide? Well, that was driven by radio, where they were telling them, go attack the others, and people listened to them. Left-wing media in this country is, well, you're looking at it, and a couple of other smaller outlets, right? And we constantly tell you guys, don't do anything physical. If you do anything physical, that means you're not a progressive, etc. Right? Right-wing media is much larger. They've got Fox News and a bunch of other places, and they're constantly telling you, remember your Second Amendment rights. You gotta fight against government tyranny. You know who's destroying this country? The wokeness is, and critical race theory is, and trans kids are. They're destroying it, destroying it, destroying it. Aren't you gonna do anything with your Second Amendment rights? And then lo and behold, people are like, oh yeah, there's guns everywhere. I'll pick one up and I'll attack the people they told me to attack. It's not at all complicated. The only reason why you have a debate over it is because then right-wing media after the fact will come in and go, how dare you blame us? Don't believe your lying eyes. Oh, that's outrageous to blame us. Now go attack them again.
And look, I don't think that there's anything that can be done about right-wing media, honestly. Like, what are you gonna do? There's nothing you can do about it. But in terms of what the left could control, can control, and when I say left, I don't just mean leftists. Leftists have no power in this country. I mostly mean Democrats, right? They like to point to these issues, certainly at least pretend to be concerned about it, right? Maybe they are concerned about it. But the only thing that Democrats can do is actually change the material conditions that allow for people to be radicalized with this extremist ideology. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, look, Democrats don't even fight back effectively. I mean, they fight back on identity politics and make a mess of it.
Absolutely.
And then it divides us even further. But they never get to the core of any of these issues.
Exactly.
So for example, on gun regulation, they even try to pretend that Biden did historic gun reform. They passed like the weakest things. I don't even remember, they were so weak, they floated away in a cloud. It was so weak, that was the only time I've ever seen mainstream media not call it historic. Biden tried to call it historic, and I think even the reporters were like, I just can't write it down. This is really historic, right? So the Democrats do almost nothing, and whereas the right-wing media and right-wing politicians come out super strong and bulldoze everyone, and it leads to these results.
Let's lighten things up a little bit with a fraud charge over a media person. Okay. It is actually a lot lighter for us, not for him though. Federal prosecutors in New York have arrested Aussie media CEO Carlos Watson on fraud charges. And it was a bit of a surprise for everyone, but especially for Watson. Now, Watson was arrested Thursday morning in a Manhattan hotel and accused of falsifying information about Aussie's performance and inflating its projected earnings in an effort to secure tens of millions of dollars in investments to offset the fledgling company's mounting debt. Now, he is accused of conspiring to commit securities fraud and wire fraud. And I forgot about how insane this story was. We initially covered it after they got caught committing the fraud. This is the update where they're arrested. But Watson's arrest came after Samir Rayo, a former executive with whom he founded Aussie, pleaded guilty to fraud and identity theft charges in a secretive federal court proceeding earlier this week. Want to know why? So they had a investor call, right? You know how companies have their meetings every quarter with investors. And during that call, there was something insane. Go ahead, Cenk.
So this one was a little different. It's arguably worse. So this was not an investor update call. This was a call where they were trying to get new investors.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay.
And that's going to be critical to this story because on the other end of the call, the people they're trying to get money from was Goldman Sachs. Critical mistake. All right, I'll let you pick it back.
You want to screw with ordinary Americans, there's no cop on the beat. You'll be fine. You want to screw with Goldman Sachs, plenty of cops on the beat. And that's the takeaway from this story, for me at least. Okay, so let's get to the details. So Rayo ended up pleading guilty Tuesday of this week under a court-approved John Doe pseudonym. He admitted that between 2018 and 2021, he made misleading statements to investors and inflated the company's financial performance while also committing identity theft. Now, here's the part that gets juicy. Rayo, Aussie's then chief operating officer, impersonated an executive of Alphabet Inc.'s YouTube during a fundraising call with Goldman Sachs Group Inc. Mr. Watson acknowledged the incident in a statement at the time, but said Rayo's behavior on the call was the result of a mental health issue.
Yeah.
But prosecutors ain't buying that at all, and they think that he was actually instructing and coaching Rayo as this ridiculous scam was taking place. That's what they're alleging.
Yeah.
Now, Watson and Rayo also agreed for Rayo to impersonate a cable network executive in 2020 through a fake email address in an attempt to secure a loan from a bank. According to the indictment, the men were both charged with aggravated identity theft.
Yeah, I've been trying to step in, say it's Rao.
Oh, whatever, sorry, my bad.
Okay, because I have a really good friend with the same last name.
I don't.
Okay, sorry. All right, guys, here's the important stuff. So there's two different issues here. One is inflating their numbers and misleading investors saying, oh, we're making all this money when they're not. The second is the fake call where they impersonate the YouTube/Google executive, right? The fake call is way more important, okay? Because I got news for you guys. Almost everyone in that industry, and I say almost because we don't do it and we get punished for it, almost everyone else inflates their numbers.
Yep.
Okay, so if that's a crime, they're gonna have to arrest 90% of the executives in digital media.
I mean, Steven Crowder accused the Daily Wire of doing that during their little tiff.
Yeah, is anybody getting arrested over there? Okay, look guys, it's almost, I mean, look, we're in this industry. I've been looking at these numbers for the last 21 years while we've been in this business, okay? And I look at it and I go, that doesn't make any sense. And then later you find out it didn't make any sense. Okay, I'll give you one example. There was a company called Maker. I'm not saying they inflated their numbers. I'm not saying they did anything illegal. I'm just saying, and I really don't know that, okay? But here's what I do know. They said, oh, we've got all these things and it's amazing and we got this kind of growth and we got that kind of revenue. And they sold it to Disney for $700 million.
Jeez.
And a short period later, Disney wrote it down for 0 because it was worth 0.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So that happens in this industry all the time.
Wow.
Okay. So then you're thinking, wait a minute. But this is really heavy, especially for white collar crime. Nobody gets arrested for white collar crime, right? And Carlos Watson was like shocked by it, and literally the lawyers were like, "This is shocking."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So why did it happen? First, they got Rao and chief of staff to flip. Why did they flip? Because they're white collar criminals.
Yep.
Of course they're gonna flip, right? They're not like hardened mob guys or whatever. They're gonna be like, oh, you wanna go to a country club prison or you wanna go to a real prison? No, country club, you get probation, please, I'm begging you. I'll turn in everybody, right? Softest people in America. Good, I want you to turn evidence in, it's because you're guilty. Okay, but you look at it and go, well, Carlos is black. I mean, maybe it's a racial thing, right? No, people in this industry love Carlos. So I know Carlos a little bit. He's a very charming guy. He's very well educated, and he had a show on MSNBC. He's got all the right credentials.
But maybe not educated enough to know that he can't mess with the oligarchy. Right, because that's what this is about. That's what this is about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In this case, it ain't racial at all. Okay, you can steal from poor people, you can lie to poor people, middle class people all day long. The minute you lie to Goldman Sachs, you're going to prison, okay? So that's how this works. We've told you this before and you can see it now. You can see the pattern after we tell you from here on out. The only people who ever get arrested for white collar criminals, Bernie Madoff, what do? He stole from rich people. What did Carlos and Rao try to do? They try to basically
steal
defraud from rich people,
Yep.
okay? That is a cardinal sin. And so that's why he's in a world of trouble and now indicted.
Can I just also say, I mean, the self-esteem and self-confidence it takes to try to pull what they tried to pull, right? Where you've got Rao posing as an Alphabet executive. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah,
it really
that
is.
was particularly brazen. And
Wow.
And by the way, Carlos said afterwards in the press, etc., and now still to this day to the authorities, like, oh, it was a mental health problem for Rao and he had a breakdown. But we're helping him through it. We're helping him through it, okay? Now they have the text from Rao because he turned evidence against him.
Oof.
So in the text, he's saying like, hey, you call in, get to this, that, the other thing, and then we'll pretend together. So there's no question. Well, look, let him have the case, let him have the trial, but the evidence right now looks pretty damning. Fun side note here, in our interactions with Ozzy, at one point, we were basically told by them that, well, we don't know if we want to work with TYT, because you guys might not be brand safe, because sometimes you attack corporations and powerful people, and so advertisers might be uncomfortable, okay? Well, I don't know if advertisers are comfortable with folks going to prison, but
is that brand safe? I don't know.
I don't know, but they're about to find out.
Oh God, I love that part of the story that I didn't know about until this very moment. It feels so good. I just want to savor it for a minute. Okay, we gotta take a break. So let's do that. And when we come back, I'm gonna hope that it's gonna stop raining as hard as it is right now, because it sounds terrifying. And we'll talk about the latest book ban in Florida, which will blow your mind.
All right, let's go to members. Oh, actually, before we go to members, let's go to ground news. So you guys know about this platform because I've been telling you guys for the last couple of weeks. They bring in news from all the different outlets and they tell you where the stories are coming from, what their source is, and their level of factuality. So that's a thing that anybody can use. So make sure you're checking it out. It's ground.news/TYT, ground.news/TYT. Or you could use a QR code on the screen. But hurry, we're gonna take it off in a second so we can go to comments. Okay, here we go. Going to comments, Jenks left tricep of fury writes in, it's funny they can find money for sick days now. All it took was a catastrophe. Funny how that worked out. Baba Jana writes in, the creation of Fox News really is the start of the decline that I can remember and a lot of the extremism we see today. There's a lot of truth to that. But it wasn't just Fox News, it was also talk radio. They took away the fairness doctrine, which is a complicated issue. But they took it away, and then Rush Limbaugh and right-wing media blew up on radio, and then started on television with Fox News, and the country has been in a significant decline since. There's a lot of truth to that. AC with an interesting comment here. I leave TYT on my Samsung TV while I'm at school. This makes me believe that my cats and dogs are more informed than consumers of mainstream media. That's hilarious. They probably are. And I appreciate you trying to help in every way. Share the videos, share the stream, whatever you can do. AC, you're awesome, I appreciate it. And for educating your cats and dogs, $100 Blue Apron gift card. What is this? Email rewards@tyt.com. Seriously, thanks for trying to help the show in every way. That's why I'm giving it out to you, and you're awesome. Twitch has another nice comment from us, but it comes from Greggy Poo 1. So take it as you will. The handles are funny. They wrote in, I love you all, fam. I don't know what I'd do without everyone at TYT. You guys are my heroes. All the members are our heroes. We can't do any of this without you guys. You literally make this show possible. Dragon Mage Queen says, I want to crawl into a cave and scream while ugly crying. This nation is an insult to dumpster fires. So how is that for a scathing yet somewhat correct analysis of where we stand today? I see, like Howard Schultz yesterday, a lot of people in this establishment do this. So why have people lost faith in institutions? I don't know, because maybe you sucked all the money dry out of the system and you did it on purpose and you're all crooked. I could be one answer. Lord Cornwall 86 says, I love the audacity of the federal government telling people that water with thousands of dead fish in it are still safe to drink and use, because our government would never lie to us, right? It is, it's audacious, and they do it all the time. It's a form of torture, it's gaslighting extraordinaire. Do you see the dead fish? No, it's safe, go ahead, drink the water. Do not believe your eyes and ears, believe the powerful instead, and do what's against your interests. It's sick. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Jake Huger, Anna Kasparian, and Maureen Torrisi with you guys. Maureen just You can remember by hitting the join button below the video on YouTube. You're awesome. Everybody else, tyt.com/join. Be like Maureen. All right, Anna.
Well, speech censorship continues in Florida, and we're not hearing much from the free speech absolutists, but it's okay, we'll cover it here. Now, this week, a school district in Florida has decided to reach a whole new level of crazy by banning a book about penguins. And this wasn't an accident. They voted on it, and they voted in favor of banning this book, And Tango Makes Three. Now, the book has absolutely no sexual innuendo in it whatsoever, even though those against it claimed it had sexual innuendo. The book is simply about two male penguins who adopt an orphaned female penguin, baby penguin.
Yep.
Okay, that's it. Chick, it's a chick. And it got banned because the two penguins who do the adopting in this book, which by the way is based on a true story, are males. So they think that this is indoctrinating kids to be gay.
Okay, so first of all, there are 1,300 species of penguins that are gay. You know who did that? Mainstream media.
Jesus.
Oh, right, wait. I'm sorry, got the talking points mixed up. You're right, Anna. It was Jesus who did it, okay? Now, if you believe in God, I didn't create the penguins. God created the penguins, okay? And he created them gay. Now, are all penguins gay? Of course not. But are a significant number gay? Yes. By the way, God, I hope if you're a right winger, you're sitting down. There's tons of animals that have gay
tendencies?
Tendencies? No, they're just flat out gay, right? They're bisexual.
Gay relations.
Gay relations, right?
Yeah.
And you know why? All created by God. Apparently, God loves gay relations.
But by the way, let me just also note, the book doesn't even talk about sexuality. It's just two male penguins who make a decision to adopt an orphaned chick. That's it. That's what the book is about, right?
And it literally happened in a zoo in New York.
It did, yeah.
And they're like, oh, we don't like those facts.
No, but it gets better.
The facts are too sexual. They don't have anything to do with sex. They didn't even have sex.
Guys.
They adopted the little kid.
Guys. It's just that like this whole story is so crazy. There was no classroom that had assigned the book. The book was just available in the school libraries.
Probably unread by anyone, if we're being honest.
So now they've made this book so naughty that I think it's gonna increase, like there's gonna be increased readership for the book, which is hilarious. But nonetheless, like, okay, so this is what we're wasting time and resources on. Great, awesome. Now, we're about to hear from the individuals who wanted to make the case for the book ban. Before we do though, I just wanna tell you about one of the teachers who was vociferous in getting this book banned, right? So a woman by the name of Vicky Baguette from Northview High School, she's an English teacher, and she was previously accused of holding racist and homophobic views. Wow, shocker. And this is what she said, I love her quote. I started profusely reading books. That's her first sentence. Did you just start? Is that what happened?
But she's also saying it as a warning.
Yeah, I actually went into a dark place, and it was because I had been exposed to pornography, to put it bluntly. Okay. This is, what would happen to you if you actually watched pornography, like real pornography? Because this is just a children's book about penguins, literally.
No, but listen to the warnings that she's giving to people. I started reading profusely, don't do that. It transformed it somehow magically into porn. Wait, how did that happen? Okay, right? And I get maybe she was reading the Harlequin novels and got off on it, and then she used that as porn or something.
This is what the reality is, okay? She's a certified freak 7 days a week, all right? She watches porn every single night and feels terrible about it. And this is how she tries to, I don't know, make up for it and feel good about herself. I don't know, but she's definitely consuming porn, like actual porn.
Now, look, Anna's theory that she's doing it day and night is a theory, okay? It's not, she's never said that. We don't know that as a fact.
It is my opinion, you weirdo.
It is your opinion, it is your opinion. But we do know, she said, this person said that she got into porn and went to a dark place. I don't know if the dark place is a good thing or a bad thing for her, depending on her fetish, I don't know. okay? But Anna's overall point is indisputable. Right-wingers have all of these demons inside their own heads that aren't even demons. They're like, oh my God, I like that girl or I like that guy and I'm the same gender, I should know. And then they just like them, who cares, right? Fantasize about who cares, do it, who cares, right? But they have in their minds, God doesn't want the penguins to be gay and he doesn't want me to be gay even though he created both of us gay. And they rip themselves apart internally. And then since they can't contain themselves anymore, eventually they push it out externally. You shouldn't read the book about penguins. You shouldn't watch porn. You shouldn't have those gay thoughts. Why don't you leave the rest of us alone? We're perfectly fine psychologically. It's you that is tortured by this. Stop torturing yourselves and us.
Now, with that said, let's take a look at this fun compilation of individuals who wanted to make the case for the banning of this book.
This book is a very clever and very subtly written attempting to promote an agenda that is sexual in nature.
When you look up this book on Destiny Discover on the schools and county website, the book says this book is about two male penguins that fall in love. What could the intention of this book be? You got two male penguins that are falling in love. And in our society, I'm sure that's not getting at anything. God says homosexuality is a sin. So perverting the grace is saying you're loved anyways. And Jesus did not say to the adulteress who was going to be stoned by people, go and keep sinning and committing adultery.
Yeah, not everyone believes in your weirdo religious doctrine.
I want to ask you, who gave us the institution of marriage? It is the Almighty God who made the heavens and earth, who made each and every one of us in his image, male and female, for his glory and his glory alone. Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask you, believe that sodomy is a sin against the Almighty God?
This is not the time to ask questions. I'll be glad to talk to you afterwards.
I would not be glad to talk to him afterwards.
The book does not talk about sodomy. I think that goes without saying, but just in case, let's cover our bases. It's not about butt sex at all.
I don't even know how penguins have sex, let alone how penguins have gay sex. I have no idea, but I know it doesn't have anything to do with human sodomy, okay? So he says God made us in his image. Did he also make gay penguins in his image? Just asking for a friend. Why do you think God made a mistake with both the penguins and millions of human beings, hundreds of millions of human beings?
Look at how cute they are.
And those, yeah, exactly, that was a mistake. It's like, anyway, isn't it interesting that you never hear in media from all the loudmouths like Bill Maher and Joe Rogan who can't stop talking about cancel culture, how the right wing is canceling all these books and trying to cancel an entire identity. Because this doesn't have to do with sex. It has to do with people being gay.
100%.
In this case, it's even penguins being gay. And that's hurt their feelings so much. They're like, cancel it, cancel it, cancel it, right? Don't even ever say the word gay, cancel it. Yet Rogan and Maher, what? Nothing, nothing. Oh, all the cancel culture is on the left. Is it? Is it? And finally.
Well, you know why? I'll tell you why. Like all of the focus is on the cancel culture coming from the left. And really it's just scold culture. No one really gets, people in positions of power don't get canceled, okay? They get scolded and they don't like getting scolded. So that's what it is for Rogan and Maher, right?
100%.
They'll say something that, maybe it's in the form of a joke, maybe they have some commentary that the left disagrees with, and then the left scolds them for it, and that's all they seem to care about because it affects them. But when it comes to school books being banned, that doesn't affect them, so they're less invested in caring about that.
100%. So what got canceled? Joe Rogan got a $100 million Spotify contract. That didn't get canceled. Bill Maher got an extra show from CNN. What the hell's getting canceled? No, they caught feelings. Oh, I've been criticized.
Right.
You don't care about any of the issues. You just care about yourself.
Okay, so let's move on because there's way more to this story than another discussion about Rogan and Maher. I could care less. So let's move on to the people who actually stood up to defend the book and didn't want it to be banned. We have a compilation on that. Let's take a look.
This is a true story. It's something that actually naturally occurs in nature with 1,300 species of penguins. So to say that it advances some sort of agenda is factually incorrect.
These books do not talk about sex for the sake of pornography or sexual stimulation. Just because a subject makes you uncomfortable does not mean it's pornography.
If a kid reads a book, he's indoctrinated into the subject. So there's a little girl in the woods who goes in a house. She eats someone's food. She destroys the furniture. So now, did we just indoctrinate a child to become a criminal?
Those who object to this book are entitled to their view, but they may not impose it on others. Any other decision threatens the principle that is essential to individual freedom, democracy, and good education. The right to read, inquire, question, and think for ourselves.
We're not asking you to make Roy and Silo the heroes of the stories in classrooms in your schools. We are just asking you to make them available in your libraries for any student who needs to seek them out, because they also have 2 dads or 2 moms, and they need to see that their families are valid. God loves that child just as much as God loves any of us. Please, for the love of God and for the love of those children, do not ban this book tonight.
The school board voted 3-2 to ban the book.
Yeah, but DeSantis says there's no book banning going on. Really? And this was specific. They voted on this exact book. It's not like, oh, well, golly gee, they banned 1.6 million books that happen to be among them. No, they made an active decision. We hate gay penguins. Okay, last things is the 2 people in the middle of both of those clips. I love them. Did you catch the analogy she was doing on Goldilocks? She's like, this person coming in here, busting everything up, eating everybody's porridge. Are we teaching them to be criminals? I love her. So, and all the people who stood up for the right thing, we love you guys. Thank you for fighting back in your own way and way more polite than I would have been. With great points. Those are all American heroes. She's the one that made the Goldilocks.
I love. She was my favorite.
Oh, for sure.
Such a great point. Like hit the nail on the head. That was great. Okay.
And the person in the middle on the right. Did you notice he called for he talked about stonings in kind of a positive way? So do you want us to stone the penguins? Because you think that's what the Bible says? Is that what you want? I mean, is this a 50-50 question? Well, golly gee, some citizens think this and some citizens think that. Well, nobody can tell the difference. No, I can tell. No, you guys are clearly 100% empirically wrong.
Now, the final thing I'll mention about this story is how the environment for teachers in Florida has become so unbearable and so incredibly difficult that many have decided to quit. And so while there is certainly a nationwide teacher shortage for a variety of reasons, it's particularly pronounced in Florida, where they have thousands of teacher job openings. When DeSantis became governor in 2019, there were 2,217 vacant teacher positions in Florida. As of early January, there were about 5,300 openings statewide, with an additional 4,631 support staff openings. And that's excluding Miami-Dade County. And that's according to the Florida Education Association. This was a great report in the American Prospect that I recommend you guys take a look at. Also in 2022, Florida allocated an additional $250 million over the previous fiscal year to increase teacher salaries. While the funding boosted the base salary for new teachers to $47,500, the pay increase for experienced teachers did not even cover cost of living increases. Overall, the pay raise bumped the state up from 49th to the 48th in average teacher pay nationwide. So when you put those two things together, right, the environment, the culture war that Ron DeSantis has waged against the teachers, the fact that they now have to be worried about losing their jobs, potentially getting sued over the books they have in the school libraries or in their classrooms, that in addition to the low pay makes them think, why am I doing this? I don't want to do this. So not only are teachers quitting, people aren't applying to be teachers.
Yeah, guys, the extra layer of it is the Don't Say Gay bill that DeSantis passed makes it so that you can sue the teachers personally if they accidentally have a gay penguin book in the library, right? And they could lose all of their money and all their life savings and their house, right? So they're like, okay, we're gonna pay you the second lowest out of all the states in the country, even though we're the third largest state in the nation and have plenty of money. And we're gonna make it so that rando weirdos can sue you. And then we're gonna attack you verbally throughout. Oh, it's the teachers, it's the librarians, it's their fault, they're trying to corrupt our kids and their groomers, right? Well, who the hell can withstand that kind of assault? By the way, why are they doing this assault? Teachers unions give money to Democrats, so they want to destroy them, and they want to privatize education, and a lot of their donors run private schools. So guys, while you're not paying attention, they're destroying public education to your kids. Meanwhile, they go, penguins, and everybody runs and they're like, oh, the gay penguins are the problem. No, the gay penguins are not the problem. The problem is teacher pay and how they're destroying these schools on purpose to privatize them for their financial gains.
When we come back from the break, turns out that there's a little bit of a disagreement between Laura Ingraham and Sean Hannity over Marjorie Greene. Can't wait to share the details on that, along with the ongoing right-wing culture war, this time having to do with Legos. Don't miss it.
All right, let's go to super chat first. Richard Jones, thank you for the donation, we appreciate it. Jonathan wrote in, I'm curious to know the search history of these straight men who want to ban these books.
We know.
You know, there isn't a guy obsessed with sodomy that isn't interested in sodomy.
Yeah, you know what I literally never think about? Sodomy.
Yeah, like never on a Tuesday afternoon was I like, goddamn sodomy. Those guys, somehow sodomy keeps popping into their heads. Yeah. I don't know how.
Weird.
Okay, History Speaks writes in, I spoke with many right-wing extremists after I published some videos debunking Holocaust denial. Humanely engaging them / aggressively challenging their views, not censorship, is the path to de-radicalization and preventing right-wing extremist violence.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you. Great point. Okay, look guys, you see me attacking right-wing politicians and oftentimes even their voters, right? And attacking the voters is not necessarily the right thing to do, but a lot of times I can't help myself. But I'm also doing it because it's true, okay? But having said that, we never argue for censorship here on TYT. Trying to bottle things up never works, it makes it cool, right? And so no, just engage them in a battle of ideas. Some in the wrong ways, mainly in the right ways, and get them to see, and like we're trying to do. I was a Republican, I opened my eyes. You can open your eyes, right? And be open to facts. I love that you did that, and thank you for writing in with that story. Okay, Hildegard's Goat writes in, been trucking for 23 plus years, hazmat highly regulated trucks, mandatory hazmat books in each truck, identify all hazmat material transported, risk, evacuation, spill, mandatory placards on equipment, ID, hazmat prompt response team. The point here, guys, I think that Hildegard's Goat's trying to make is there is a way we do this. We do it in the trucking industry. We could easily do it in the rail industry. We're just choosing not to do it with a bunch of really hazardous chemicals because they paid off politicians and to cut costs. So, and by the way, he wrote back in and said hazmat on trains must be equally regulated as the big trucks. Large cities mandate hazmat on trucks to bypass. Trucks can carry up to 80,000 freight, I think, sometimes toxic or flammable. Most small towns, truck speed limit is 25 miles per hour. So plenty of regulation on trucks, but almost none on trains. That means the train industry has better lobbyists. So and they pay off more politicians. How come you never hear that in mainstream media? All right, anyway, great points with specific experience. Thank you. I love doing this show with you guys. All right, French Fry, a member on YouTube says, I really enjoy receiving news from Anna and Cenk. They're so genuine, that makes a big difference. You're wonderful for saying that. And Schultzy41 says, this reminds me of that kid who wrote his congressman about his fears of new lax gun legislation over Christmas break. He was in his house, minding his own business, and got killed by a stray bullet.
God, yeah.
And nothing ever changes. You're right. Karl Marx fan club says Cenk is right. Too many guns that we can't keep up with them all. Unfortunately, also true. So many great points. I can't get to all of them. All right, we'll be back. TYT, Chang and Anna with you guys, and Chris Birch just gifted 5 Young Turks memberships on YouTube. Chris, thank you, brother. Anna.
Well, let's do it. An unlikely critic of Marjorie Taylor Greene's national divorce plan spoke out against the Congresswoman, and that person was Laura Ingraham? Sounds like a little bit of drama. Can't wait to see what it is, so let's watch.
Okay, well, first, a law prohibiting American citizens who've not committed a crime from voting would probably not withstand legal scrutiny. And second, how would this, like a national divorce, be good for conservatism? Now, why would we want to embrace the states that gave us Jimmy Carter and Bill Clinton, but essentially give up on the states that gave us Reagan and Trump? Imagine if Youngkin had given up on Virginia, or if Republicans on Long Island gave up on New York. The last thing we need is an American breakup of any sort. Remember, a motto of this show, almost from the start, over 5 years ago, has been no state left behind. Just because it often seems like Democrats have given up on America themselves, doesn't mean ever that Republicans or conservatives should. They should not. I'm certainly not willing to give up on the states that gave us Sinatra, John Wayne, or that welcomed my grandparents from Poland. There are good, hardworking people in Illinois, in New York, and in California, Washington State, who don't want to move and who are looking for new leadership. So let's give it to them.
So look, overall, I think what she's saying is fine, except for, really, since day one, the motto of your show is no state left behind?
Anna, I independently thought the same exact thing when I was prepping for this story. I was like, I've never seen that on our show. That's been the motto all along. Man, you suck at promoting your motto. Okay, but overall, totally right. And hey, look, broken clock twice a day, right? So we agree with her. But the interesting part of the story isn't that. The interesting part of the story is the internal drama at Fox News.
Yes, yes. I buried the lead, folks. Okay, so now Sean Hannity's coming at it from a different perspective. And we're gonna have a fun conversation about why and what the intentions are here. But before we get to his more recent discussion about this, remember, he had Marjorie Greene on his show to basically promote the notion of a national divorce. Let's watch that to get a refresher.
The Congresswoman has another idea as well, banning people who move from blue states to red states from voting for 5 years so they don't bring their bad politics with them. I actually favor that idea. I think most people instinctively want this to be the United States of America. And here's my question. How did you get to this point? I mean, I look at topics, for example, how do you reconcile defund the police and no bail laws with law and order? How do you reconcile secure borders and wide open borders? How do you reconcile energy independence with energy dependence and new Green Dealism? How do you reconcile peace through strength with people that want to gut our defense? I don't see middle ground on a lot of these issues.
Now, he revisited the topic on his podcast and promoted it yet again. Let's watch.
I definitely like the idea of more power being brought to the states and a more decentralized federal government, which is bloated and way out of control. And I think instilling any fiscal discipline, instilling discipline in Congress would be a great goal. You're not talking about a full divorce. You're talking about a transfer of power. That's a very different thing.
So Cenk, what's going on here, right? Because is Sean Hannity serious about wanting a so-called national divorce? We've discussed how tricky something like that would be, considering you've got plenty of Republicans and red districts, by the way, in states like California. Like, it's not that easy. So like, what's going on here?
Well, it's not easy because it would instantly lead to a civil war. It's not like we haven't lived this movie before. We went through this about 150 years ago. Okay, so here's the super interesting thing, drama within Fox. So Ingram, Hannity, and Tucker Carlson, obviously the three main hosts in primetime. But they all view things a little bit differently. I don't mean ideologically. I mean their relationship to different power bases within the right wing. So Laura Ingraham is the most corporate of them all. So whatever Murdoch says, Laura Ingraham is very likely to do it, okay? And now Murdoch has turned against Trump and against the crazies like Marjorie Taylor Greene. So all of a sudden Laura Ingraham comes out and goes, I don't know about this Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, once we tell you this, you'll be able to see in the future with your own eyes them falling into these little buckets. One of the reasons that Laura Ingraham is that way is because Laura Ingraham was in the woods for a long time. She's one of the last hosts to come on Fox News, even though she was in talk radio forever, okay? And she knows what it's like not being on Fox News, and it ain't pretty. So she's like, Murdoch says, I do, okay? Tucker Carlson is the most populist of them all. He has the most amount of money, cares the least about what Rupert Murdoch says, wants to appeal to the audience, and he knows the audience is filled with populists. So he will often defy the corporate wing of the party, defy Murdoch, and go with Trump and Alex Jones and crazy conspiracy theories about suntanning your crotch leading to something or other, okay? And Hannity is caught in the middle. Hannity is a robot, right? And so you program him one way and he'll just go in that direction, whether it makes sense or it's contradictory or not. Remember, he was in favor of Afghanistan and Iraq and he wanted to stay there forever and ever and ever. Now, just the other day, he did a segment, we've been in Ukraine too long, what are we doing here? Because he was programmed by Republicans to say war is good when Republicans started, war is bad when Democrats are in charge, right? In this case, he's confused because the audience is telling him, go more populist. Rupert Murdoch and executives are telling him, get back in line. So he keeps going, oh yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene, civil war sounds like a good idea. Wait, it does not. We really want tax cuts and only tax cuts. Okay, so he's going back and forth. The robot's malfunctioning because he's got two different sets of orders and he doesn't really know anything. He's just like, give me programming. I don't know what to say.
I mean, I think that this is a fantastic way of informing the American people, taking marching orders from various individuals or groups of individuals.
Yeah.
Instead of actually, delivering the facts. And these are commentary shows. So commentary is allowed, obviously, but is it accurate, genuine analysis? Or is it just analysis based on who they're pandering to?
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. I think it's pretty clear to our audience, we don't pander to anyone, including them. Sorry guys, but I sometimes say things that upset you, and I'm gonna keep saying it if it's what I genuinely believe, right? Because it's the right thing to do. I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you what you wanna hear. It would be deceptive and wrong. But with other hosts, especially at Fox News, it's all about appeasing whichever group you're kind of angling at,
Yeah, so the couple of things that Hannity said in the longer interview with Marjorie Taylor Greene, I listened to the whole thing, tell you exactly what's wrong with Hannity, right? So he does the TV segment and he's like, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm a populist, right? Good guys, good. And then he gets, I guarantee you got a note from a Fox News executive. So he goes back on air with on radio and he's like, so when you say national divorce, you mean cut spending, right? I mean, that's what, I'm like, wait. Those two things are not at all related, right? You just pretended it was about cutting spending because the corporate wing of the party just wants to cut spending to give more breaks to rich people. And then if you notice, and even in the clip that we played for you at the end, he goes, so you don't mean a national divorce, you mean a transfer of power. Because earlier we were talking about the federal government should have less power, so we should do less spending for average Americans and more tax cuts for the rich. And then before she could answer, because he totally recast what she said national divorce. He's like, you don't mean national divorce, you mean transfer of power. And he went to break. He didn't ask her a question, he just went to break, okay?
Okay, the most important thing to take out of this story, to get out of this story, is what I'm about to say. Because some GOP strategists spoke to The Hill about this whole debacle. And this should be instructive for anyone who's even a little, even identifies on the left in any way, right? Multiple GOP strategists told The Hill that some on the right are staying quiet because they believe Greene's comments were meant to get a reaction and help her fundraise. She wants you to cover it. She wants the MSNBC love so she can raise money off it. She wants people talking about it, one GOP operative told The Hill.
Oh, that's 100% correct.
Okay.
That's actually the one smart thing that Marjorie Taylor Greene has done. Now, it's destroying the country, but Democrats don't understand when you fight for your side. Now, they could do it with substance. She does it with nonsense. You, on top of becoming more popular, you raise more money. So she figured that out. She's just playing that game 1,000 times over.
Exactly. All right, one more story before we wrap up the show and go to our members only bonus, tyt.com/join to become a member. Let's do it.
Lego is going woke. The company unveiling a range of new characters in the effort to be more inclusive. Lego says the new characters will promote diversity and understanding. Some will have anxiety issues. I don't know how you show that. One will have a missing limb, another Down syndrome.
These are toys for children. And I don't know why grown adults are talking about it on national television, but nonetheless, we will hear more from Fox's analytical A-team in a second. First, more details about this all-inclusive Lego line. The brand recently introduced new characters to its Friends line, including those with different skin tones, disabilities, limb differences, and vitiligo. The company said it had done so after feedback that children had a desire to see themselves, their friends, and their families better represented. And apparently that is unacceptable to Harris Faulkner and Fox News radio host Jimmy Fallon. So let's hear what they have to say.
These are really important issues.
Yeah.
Do you want Lego in there?
Definitely not. But what's so fascinating about this story is the divide in the country. Republicans think it's insane that they're forcing identity politics into Legos. Democrats are upset that they didn't make a drag queen stripper. They're like, you call this a children's toy? What kind of set is this? No, it shouldn't be going on the way it's going on. But the reason they force identity into toys is because they think identity comes with a built-in political orientation. And that's what they're after here. I'm not having it.
Wow.
Having it.
Wow.
He's not.
She said wow, like it was a big deal that he's not having it. Like, oh, this rando we brought in here to make asinine points, not having it. Whoa.
That's the best part of this entire story.
Harris Faulkner's so embarrassing. Okay, so guys, two fun things about this. One, just the phenomenon overall. Right-wingers don't want anything that's different than them. This isn't even racial or about gender identity. Guy's missing a limb. Why is that wrong? Like, why can't that be represented? Why do people who look exactly like you are the only ones who could ever be represented in movies or Legos or M&Ms? Why can't they represent people who don't look like you? What a weird thing.
By the way, let's keep it simple for a second and just focus on the fact that Lego is a private company that's looking to profit. They have to profit, otherwise they die, right? So could it be that they're putting out a product because there's demand for that product?
Yeah, and by the way, my daughter bought a Barbie that's in a wheelchair, right?
How dare she?
Yeah, and you know what that indoctrinated her into? Maybe being decent to people in wheelchairs. Oh, we can't have that kind of identity politics. You know that if you're in a wheelchair or missing a limb or have Down syndrome, people should be really mean to you.
I'm not having it, Cenk.
Not having, oh no. She's not having it.
Wow.
Wow. Okay, guys, this one though, fun prediction, this one's not gonna stick. You won't see it around like you did with M&Ms and all those things around and around. You know why? Because there's people with Down syndrome and disabilities in Republican families. So it works only if you can create an effective other, right? Hey, they don't look like you. They got a different skin color. Hey, they don't act like you. They like people of the same gender. Oh, boo, right? And in fact, that's why right now 2/3 of Americans say, no, gay marriage is perfectly fine, no matter how much propaganda the right wing does, because gay people are also inside their families. So people the Republicans that have Down syndrome kids, they're not gonna like this talk at all. and Fox News will backpedal out of this. And then we'll see if I'm right or wrong. I think this is one of the last times you'll see the so-called Lego controversy because it's not going to play well.
I'm really happy to see that Fox News is covering the important issues.
Right. Who thinks that's a top issue in America? Who thinks that? People trying to distract you from the top issues in America.
We got deep fakes in the bonus episode for our members. tyt.com/join to become a member and join in on the fun. We'll see you there.
Can't let that happen.
Hey everyone, Matteo Scarapore here, author of Black Buck, which is Shop TYT's first fiction book ever. I'm honored. So, Black Buck is about a young man named Darren who's living in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. He lives with his mom, he has his girlfriend, he has his best friend, he has his neighborhood, and his neighborhood has him. Darren's also working at a Starbucks in Midtown Manhattan. And one day, this man, real suave and good looking, comes in and asks Darren